We're pulling over 500 megabits per second down. That's good. If you're like me, when you think of ZTE, you think of smartphones, but apparently they make other products too, including Wi-Fi routers like the one we have right here, the ZTE Miracle Wi-Fi 6 router. This is an AX3000 Wi-Fi 6 802.11ax Wi-Fi router that also supports mesh setups. We're looking at 7 decibel relative to isotrope, ultra high gain antennas, easy mesh compatibility, NFC one-touch connection along with WPS, dual WAN support along with up to 3000 megabits per second of throughput. The box is looking very nice, very slim actually. I'm very impressed. Apparently this won 2 design awards in 2021 and 2022, but looking at this thing, it just looks like a standard router. I mean, it looks kind of cool, but nothing super special, so that's kind of weird. We're also looking at powerful security protection, supports Wi-Fi speed mode, minimalist settings, Wi-Fi channel optimization, Qualcomm high performance professional routing chip, and NFC one-touch connection. Sounds like a router with a lot of different features with apparently a award-winning design, so let's see what we got inside this box. We have a user manual, and I'm not sure what language that is. Looks like French or something. That's kind of weird. Oh, but it looks like we do have English in the middle. It's kind of weird that the default's not English. Not sure what's going on there. We also have a white Ethernet cable, a white power brick and cable, along with, okay, very lightweight router itself. And I guess the design actually is pretty nice, not gonna lie. Now, one thing I do like is the consistency of having white for the colorway of everything. Everything matches. Very nice if you want something white to blend in with your walls. We can pop up these 7 decibel relative to isotropes antennas. NFC badge right here on the top for that one-touch connection if you have a compatible device. ZTE branding down here on the bottom. An LED indicator light on the front. I mean, this is a very slim design. I really like it. Over on the back, we have 2 gigabit LAN ports along with 2 gigabit WAN/LAN ports that you can use for either or. We also have a power button and a one-touch WPS button. Down here on the bottom, we have a ton of ventilation grills, and really that's it. A very sleek, low profile design with 4 beefy antennas supporting Wi-Fi 6 connectivity. Now with all that being said, I'm going to get this set up in the networking area and we're going to put it to the test. Alright, so I got the router set up in the networking area and it was a very simple process. Literally plug and play directly from the modem into one of the WAN ports and we were good to go. It took about a minute for the light to stop flashing red and go to a solid white, which means we are good to go. So the next thing we're going to do is download the Zte Link app on our phone and open it up. You're going to make sure you connect to the ZTE Wi-Fi network in your Wi-Fi settings with the default password on the bottom of the router. Once we're inside of the app, we're going to sign in. We're going to put our default password that's on the bottom of the router. Now keep in mind that there are 2 different passwords on the bottom of the router. One of them's for the Wi-Fi network itself and one of them's for the administration area. And now we're in. Okay, we're going to agree to the terms and conditions, configure our network, and now we're gonna get our connection set up. Okay, so it looks like right here we can adjust the 5 gigahertz preference. So we can have 5 gigahertz preferred, which is of course what you want to do because it is much faster, although it doesn't have as much range. So the 2.4 gigahertz signal and the 5 gigahertz signal are gonna merge together and then put your device on the correct network, although in my experience it doesn't work too well. Here we're also able to adjust our Wi-Fi name as well as our Wi-Fi password and turn NFC on or off. Now if you want to have 2 separate networks, which is what I generally prefer to do, we uncheck the 5 gigahertz preferred option and then we have 2 separate networks. You can have the first option sync with 5 gigahertz, or you can have 2 completely different names and completely different passwords if you want to. I'm gonna just have them both be the same because it's a lot easier. And just like that, our device is set up. It shows us our passwords for each network as well as the name for each network. And now that we're connected, we can actually see that we have 2 devices connected to the network. I'm not sure what the other device is. I only have this phone connected right now. But we can see our cable broadband is connected. We can see our upload and downlink speed. We can optimize our Wi-Fi connection. We might as well do that. It's going to scan our current channel and pick the best channel that doesn't have as much interference from neighboring Wi-Fi networks. So as you can see right now, we just have this device right now connected. We can see device status, which network it is on, how long it's been on, the address type, MAC address, IP address, all that good stuff. You can also adjust parental controls if you have your kids on the Wi-Fi network and you want to block access to certain websites. And even down here at the bottom, you can block this device from connecting to your network if you want to block your friends from getting on the network because you're mad at them. And down here at the bottom, we also have toolkits. So if we go here, we have a couple of different settings. We have our Wi-Fi settings first, which are the basic settings for the network name and password. Then we have guest Wi-Fi, because you can actually make a separate guest network for people who come over to visit. That's completely different from your regular network. We can do a network speed test. So okay, that's weird. I just opened a speed test app on my phone, but I guess we'll do it anyways. Why not? I thought it was going to be built into the ZTE app, but that's not the case. We have 11 millisecond ping. Okay. We're pulling over 500 megabits per second down. That's good. Now, for reference, my download speed is 1 gigabit and my upload speed is 35 megabits. So let's see how close we can get to that. Oh, okay, we actually passed 35 megabits per second up, so that's a good sign. Okay, so not too bad, not too bad. Nothing to complain about. Now we can actually set auto restart, because sometimes you need to restart your router because it gets clogged up with data and starts going slow. It happens. You have to restart it every so often. So you can actually have it set to restart every week at a certain time if you want to, generally while you're sleeping, so nobody gets affected by the disconnection. Then we have sleep wake up. This is new. So automatically turn off Wi-Fi at a specific time, which helps you sleep well because you don't have access to the internet. So you can do that if you want to focus on your well-being because you can't control yourself. We have the indicator light on the front, always on. Our schedule to turn off. I like to have them on so that way I know everything's working, but that's just me. And then we have our mesh network. So if you have multiple devices, you can connect them all together in a mesh setup to have access through Wi-Fi through all parts of your house, because obstacles will block the signal. And as you can see, the settings here are very basic, but we can actually tap on more, and it's going to bring us to some more in-depth access, it looks like, maybe. Wi-Fi coverage, we have walkthrough mode, standard mode, and short range mode. It's kind of weird, I'm not sure what the differences are. I'm guessing walkthrough mode's the best because short range is super close. WPS connection, and then you can actually adjust the maximum connections. Weird, I've never seen that be a thing, but I'd want to have that as high as possible. Connection mode, we have single... typo. We have single WAN or multi-WAN. I only have one WAN connection plugged in, so we're just going to leave it at single. Then we have internet access for the wired network. You know, you can adjust a couple of settings here if you want a direct wire. We have our device info. We can see our model number, IP address, firmware version, and hardware version, along with the WAN IP address, which is blank for some reason. Then we have password management, so you can actually, I guess, just change the password of the admin area, probably. That would make sense. Then we can reset to factory settings, sign in automatically. I like to have that on so I don't have to worry about it. Restart the router, check for firmware updates. And it's just been checking for updates nonstop and nothing's happening. So I'm just gonna assume there's no updates. Everything's working fine anyways. Then we have user online notifications, which is pretty cool. You can get notified when other people connect, it looks like. And that's it. Now, that's still pretty basic, so if you really want to, you can actually go onto the web on your computer or even on your phone to take a look at some more in-depth administration settings. So right here, we're gonna actually we have our login password. It's gonna be the same password as you logged into the app with. And then once you're inside, we can check out connection settings, Wi-Fi settings, connecting devices, and other settings. Okay, this is all basic once more. It says for more functions, visit on a PC. Okay, so let's do it on here, even though it says it might not work because we're on a smaller display. But this is the main screen here, and it has our Wi-Fi connection QR codes, which is nice. So you can just easily print those out and scan them to connect to your network, especially if you want to have an invisible network that nobody can see. That's great. We can go to advanced settings, and now this is where we have all the in-depth settings. It doesn't look as in-depth as I was thinking. But we do have the indicator light once again, Wi-Fi, wake. Okay, this is all the same stuff. Okay, we have basic settings for the router. So right here, you know, it's still pretty basic. You can change the IP address. We have Mac IP bind, so you can bind Mac addresses to IP addresses if you don't want them to change. We have DDNS settings. We have the firewall, so you can have port filtering, port mapping, port forwarding, URL filtering, UPnP, DMZ, and system security. Let's go to system security. So we have remote management via WAN and ping from WAN filter. Okay, I mean, got some stuff here. We can go to update, automatically check for new versions at night between 2 and 4 a.m. Then we have others, so we have reset, restart. I mean, we got some settings here. It's not the most in-depth thing I've ever seen, but, you know, there's some settings here. Good enough for most people. And really, that's all of the different settings. Very simple, straightforward, to the point. Now, if you want something super in-depth, It doesn't look like they have everything that I've seen around. For example, I didn't see anything about a VPN, which is usually pretty basic when it comes to routers, so keep that in mind, although of course that could be fixed in a firmware update because this router is very new. So just now I did a bit of a range test for the Wi-Fi signal and got some results. I went about 100 feet away from the router, but through walls and different obstacles. On the 5G network, I was able to pull 73.4 megabits per second down and 12.7 megabits per second up. Keep in mind this is out of a potential 1000 megabits per second down and 35 megabits per second up. Next, I went directly behind the wall that the Wi-Fi router is stationed next to and was able to pull 395 megabits per second down and 36.7 megabits per second up, which is not too shabby, although it is still relatively close just through a single wall. And then finally, I did the same test at 100 feet away on the 2.4 gigahertz connection and was able to pull a crawling 8.2 megabits per second down and 5.53 megabits per second up, which is good enough for smart devices, but if you're trying to do anything, it's pretty slow. So based on the speeds I was getting when I was going away from where the router was stationed, I would definitely recommend you take them up on their easy mesh offer and set up a mesh network in your house if you want to blanket the entire property, because I was only 100 feet away going through not a real significant amount of walls. It was basically a single wall, maybe a couple of things in the way, but that speed came down pretty drastically for not being so far away. The 2.4 gigahertz connection was even worse, but if you're relatively close to the Wi-Fi router, you have a solid speed, although that's to be expected because, you know, it's right there. Honestly, I was expecting it to be better only 100 feet away. Usually that's not much of a problem, but I guess sometimes it is. So keep in mind if you're planning to pick up the ZTE Miracle AX3000 Pro Wi-Fi 6 802.11ax router, wow, that's a lot of stuff I just said. Make sure you take into account how the signal's gonna drop when you go far away from the router and plan to set up a mesh network or a wired connection somehow if you're gonna be about 100 feet away from the router or want your whole home covered in Wi-Fi signal at a decent throughput so you can actually enjoy your connection. Because there's nothing worse than inviting your friends over, you have your Wi-Fi router over here, and then everyone's over here and they're like, hey, you have Wi-Fi? And you're like, I do, but you gotta go over there to use it. You don't want to do that. It's gonna end the party and no one's ever gonna want to come over to your house again. So keep that in mind.